Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
So today we've got Brad Blazar with us, and Brad, it's great to have you on. I'm very interested in hearing your history of how you came from the East Coast and ended up in the oil fields. So great to have you. Give us a little clue here, would you?
Absolutely. Well, number one, it's just great to be here with you today, Bruce. And, you're spot on. I'm one of those guys that was born on the East Coast, small little state called Rhode Island that you can drive through in the span of about an hour. And grew up on seafood and lobster, and then kind of followed my father's career, very early in life into the upper Midwest, Michigan, Ohio. And then I actually settled here in Texas. Really, it was go to school at the University of Texas in Austin. My family relocated to Dallas. And so being a large, state-funded university, it naturally made sense. Also, it's a good school. And while I was a student there, I ended up getting sidetracked and ended up in the oil and gas industry, working for a very small investment sponsor, getting on the phone, building relationships with investors, and kind of parlayed that over a 2-year period of just getting the knowledge and building an investor base. And at the end of 23, I started my own oil company and built a database of investors that backed us and grew that organization up over about a decade to a pretty nice sized business, exited. And then, of course, today invest primarily in real estate. That's pretty much where we like to play today, as well as running our educational platform that now has gone into 28 countries that we call Capital School.
Wow, 28 countries. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we're in 28 countries today with our educational platform. And it's really amazing. Me and my team, we get to visit with people via Zoom all over the world, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, over in the United Kingdom, the Middle East, UAE. And it really just gives you a great global perspective on really how people are raising capital and the types of deals they're doing globally in many different countries. And it really opens your eyes to opportunities that normally most individuals would never understand. For example, the Australian residential real estate market has just appreciated so far beyond anything we could fathom here in the United States that in the last 45 years, the median appreciation of property here is about 800%. Over in Australia, it's well over 3,000%.
Oh my gosh.
If you follow the smart money, like the BlackRocks and the Apollos and the big global firms that are investing in Sydney and Adelaide and Perth and Brisbane, it just opens your mind to really just look at things holistically and very different. But it also gives you opportunities that you would normally never been exposed to. So it's definitely been a very, very cool journey indeed.
Well, that's very interesting. So tell us a little bit about that educational platform. What happens there?
Well, my background has been raising capital. I've been doing it now for over 30 years. I've raised more than $2 billion through my efforts and the efforts of very small teams that I've assembled. And so when I retired a few years ago and published my first book, I started getting calls from people that wanted to come in and have me either go to work for them or consult them. And what I realized is that my body of knowledge could really help build people's futures. And so I hired a coach that is one of the top business coaches in the country. And I said, look, I've got this vision. I've got this idea. Can you help me package it and put together the content, which of course he did. And we just kind of set it in motion. And of course, it's just kind of evolved from there. But really, the whole premise of Capital School and what we do is we teach entrepreneurs and business owners how to attract, raise, and close investor capital so that they can build, buy, or scale a business, or as I like to say, get a seat at the big kids' table. And when I started consulting, I often ask people, hey, Bruce, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you choose to be doing, or what would you love to be doing? And so really what it did is it got people to open up and share their dreams. And, people would say things like, oh my God, Brad, I've always had a vision to own a restaurant, or I've always wanted to get in real estate, or I've always wanted to do this. And I would ask, well, what's holding you back? And the very interesting thing, Bruce, is that it wasn't the fear or the limiting belief. It always came down to capital. I just don't have the money. And so I just kind of smiled and I said, well, don't you realize, that every day when we get out of bed, we're surrounded by all the money we technically need to pretty much do anything in life we want and we desire. We just call these other people investors. And I would ask if I could teach you how to cultivate those relationships and how to legally and ethically raise the capital. Would that add value to you? And of course, everybody said yes. And so that's kind of what spurred this idea and really set this in motion about 4 years ago. And so, we officially launched the platform and then started the marketing. And today we coach in, oh my God, I can't even think how many sectors and industries. Real estate, we got people that are raising money for movies and Broadway shows and for artificial intelligence and just the acquisition of businesses and creating products that are now on shelves of stores around the world. So I tell people it really doesn't matter what it is you're raising capital for. As we all know with Shark Tank, people go into the tank and they raise money for all kinds of different things. It's really just understanding the structure of how to do it. And of course, putting together the marketing materials and the client facing materials so that you can share that vision with other people that they can buy into.
That sounds fantastic. And so how often are you on Zoom? It sounds like quite a lot.
Oh, on Zoom, I'm on Zoom typically probably 3 to 4 times daily, if not more.
Yeah, no, and you have sort of regular classes with your different investor groups?
We do. Yeah, we have, of course, different levels, of course, of people based on whether they're beginners or a little bit more seasoned in advance. We have a whole division that launches funds. So as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, if you've been thinking about launching a fund, we have a whole division that takes care of all of the legal and creates the PPMs and the pitch decks and the marketing. It's a complete turnkey service at a fixed cost that saves a lot of time and a lot of money. And so we do all those different things, but it really empowers people because so many people, especially those in real estate, want to learn how to raise capital, but they really lack the knowledge or they lack the framework. And so they're victim of what I call or what I describe randomness in motion. You're talking to think to investors and you're sending out stuff, but you're wondering like, why am I not raising any money here? And it's really because you lack the systems and you lack the skills and the knowledge. And you're probably guilty of the biggest mistake, which is pitching the deal very early in the relationship. And we need to understand that, people invest with people they know, like, and trust. So if you pitch me, I'm going to say, oh, Bruce, it sounds pretty interesting. Send me some information so I can take a look at it. Well, that's what everybody says. So now you send them everything, but then they don't invest. And so really the answer to that is they don't trust you.
Right.
Invest the time to build a relationship, have 2 or 3 meetings with somebody, allow them to know who you are and really see your values and get under the skin, so to speak, so that, they realize that you've got a track record and you've got a team and you can execute. And then when you do it the right way, you find all of a sudden that money just comes out of trees. It just, it's attracted to quality people that have really, really good deals that are able to build that network.
So I'm sure the listeners are sitting there going, well, this all sounds fantastic. This sounds great, but how much is this going to cost me?
Well, there's, like I said, various levels. We have an entry-level platform that really builds the foundation, sets the building blocks. That can be as little as $1,000 a month for 2 or 3 months. And then once you get the body of knowledge, if you choose to ascend up from there and work directly with me or come to many of the events that we curate around the country, where you're now meeting with family offices and current and former professional athletes, that obviously has a little higher cost. And then our highest, we call that our elite offer, involves obviously law firms and legal teams putting together your offering memorandum. But, you kind of, ascend up from one level to the next. But people can literally get started for as little as $1,000, $1,500 a month for 2 or 3 months, get all the education they need, get the understanding, and then start moving forward. And when you look at the potential return on investment, I mean, my God, you get one investor, that gives you $25,000 or $50,000. The ROI on that sets you in motion. And so I tell people, if you're successful raising money, why would you ever stop? It's like anything else. If someone gives you $50,000 or $100,000 to do a small flip or to go out and buy a small residential property where you're sharing in the profits, Why would you ever stop with that? Just keep doing that, raise more capital, do more deals, learn how to graduate into, commercial real estate. And, we coach and we mentor people that are fairly new. I also consult companies with over $1 billion in assets. And so when they come to me, they've already been hugely successful.
Right,
They've
right.
got, $1 billion portfolios. And what they really need from me is the accessibility and the knowledge and building a platform with things like family offices, broker dealers, or to tap into other networks of capital like institutions, like pensions, insurance companies, trust. And I've raised capital from all of these over my career. So that's really what sets me apart from most of the other educators on social media. Nobody else out there that we know of has raised $2 billion that makes themselves available to other people to come in alongside them as a chief investment officer or as a capital raising Sherpa. Most people are raising money from retail investors. So if you want to learn how to attract money from family offices, or you want to learn how to raise capital from broker dealers, we have what I call a very specialized skill set here that really sets us apart.
Well, it sounds like you have this incredible network that kind of maybe goes back and forth a little bit. When you have a family office, maybe they give to a smaller fund and they still want to have the bigger information that you have.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think that one of the things people need to realize, and I actually talk about this in my book, Winning at the Capital Game, when you're a business owner, whether you're in technology, whether you're in real estate, or whether you're raising capital, you really need to look at the avatar or the type of investor that you need to approach. And what I mean by that is there are many types of investors. There are what we call retail investors. These are the doctors, the business owners, people much like ourselves that are highly compensated. Then you have family offices. Then you have angel investors, some business owner that had a successful exit that may have come into 50 or hundreds of millions of dollars. Then, of course, we have the small boutique registered investment advisory firms, the broker dealers, the private equity. And so, for startup, you need to know, okay, more than likely, I'm going to go to a venture capital firm. They invest in startups or they like technology. If I'm doing something else and I'm a little bit farther along and I have some track record, maybe the family office space or angel investors would be a little bit better fit for me. So what we try to really do is help that business owner zero in and get clarity on where they are in the capital raising journey so that when they start raising capital, they don't stub their toe. Their message starts to resonate with the right audience so that they can hopefully and successfully bring in the capital. But one thing that I will certainly share with people that we need to understand is that raising capital is a process. Mm-hmm. It's not an action. And I think that's where a lot of people really get led astray. They get a list and they just, blast out their pitch deck or they blast out an email to a large audience. And then they think that that's going to result in capital being raised. Of course, it's not.
Right.
Sending this out to a blind audience who has no idea who you are, no idea really what you're doing. So you have to send that out, but then follow it up within 48 hours, perhaps with a telephone call or some form of outreach, because the process is you got to warm people up. You got to build the relationship. So understanding that raising capital, unfortunately, requires work. The money just doesn't show up in wheelbarrows. The phone calls, the meetings, the networking, we can be very, very successful. Unfortunately, a lot of people are looking for the blue pill like the movie Matrix. They want it delivered on a silver platter, and they want you to do all the work for them. And that's why they are unsuccessful, is they just get frustrated, or worse yet, they're just not willing to put in the effort and actually do the work, which is amazing because this is how you create legacy wealth, folks. If you've ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki in that book, which is certainly one of the most widely read books on wealth creation globally, says the key to legacy wealth is understanding the OPM game. It's learning how to build relationships. It's learning how to raise capital, because then there's essentially no limit to the size and the scope of the business that you can build and create.
So for those that are not familiar, what is OPM?
OPM, it stands for other people's money.
Yeah, okay.
OPM game, other people's money.
So this sounds like a very sophisticated version of The Ultimate Sales Machine. Are you familiar with that book?
I am. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, I think that is a nice primer to building up to what you're saying.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You bet. Yeah.
Between that and Rich Man, Poor Man, that all comes together in a very nice package, it sounds like, in your particular educational process.
Yeah. I mean, it's really understanding that and so many people, as we know, want to retire themselves from corporate America. They're on the rat race. And what they need to realize is it really doesn't take a long time to retire yourself. If you're investing in a business or you're investing in real estate that's generating passive income, you just need to figure out, how do I do this at scale? How do I get myself involved in more properties so I can generate more passive income? And of course, as Robert says in the book, once your passive income meets or exceeds your current living expenses, you've created financial freedom for yourself. And I think what so many people are focused on, Bruce, unfortunately, is they're thinking, oh, geez, I need $2 million, at a 6% distribution rate to create $120,000 a year in income. That's the wrong model. That could take you literally a lifetime to try to grow with the ups and downs and the volatility in the market. Take your income, invest it into things that create passive income. We love real estate. We love data centers. We love, of course, businesses, to generate enough passive income for yourself where whatever your monthly expense might be, $5,000 for some, might be $7,500, $8,000 for others. Now you got your mortgage or your rent, you got your auto payment covered, you got enough passive income to put food on the table and take care of the necessities of life. Now you can fire your boss and say, okay, I'm at a point in my life where I've got passive income giving me the freedom and the flexibility now to do bigger things, and then focus on the wealth creation of really building that up and investing in assets and partnering with other people. And that's what I really love to see in people, is the transformation and the change in what we're able to do. When I get testimonials or text or emails, I mean, that's why I show up and do what I do every day. It's kind of what just keeps us going. It's really amazing to see the transformation, and also just people that all of a sudden just wake up and go, my God, I got my first investor. I can't believe it. I'm holding a check for $100,000 in my hands. That's more money than I've seen in my entire life. And I said, don't stop there.
Don't stop there.
Just keep going.
Just keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
So typically, how long does this educational process take? I mean, it sounds like it can go short or long.
Well, yes. So when people enroll, we give them lifetime accessibility to our platform. So our Facebook community, access to our online learning academy. We refer to that as our vault with videos, PDFs, workbooks. We give people lifetime accessibility to those things. When people onboard, we have what we call a fast start accelerator. It's usually 2 or 3 months, and really it accelerates the process. And then beyond that, we have weekly calls every Thursday as a community to engage people, to bring in guest speakers, to, of course, hold people accountable. And then we do other things throughout the year, like we call them pitch parties, where we'll say, if you feel you're investor ready, come pitch your deal in a safe environment with our community and get instant feedback. So that when you go out to the world and you're actually now pitching live, you don't stub your toe, you don't muff it up. So we do what we can as a community to support other people. But really the process of learning how to raise capital can be anywhere from, let's just say 2 to 3 months. And the beautiful thing about following this proven blueprint is you can take an absolute stranger that opts in or that you meet and turn them into an investor of yours in as short a time as about 4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks to go full cycle and actually complete that process of getting people to know you, like you, sending them the information on a deal that you might be working on, and then obviously closing them. I tell people, you can go from 0 to 60 miles an hour pretty quickly if you choose to. But again, you have to be what I call investor ready. You have to have the collateral material. You need to have your presentation. But once those things are behind you, then you can accelerate pretty quickly.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like people ought to just jump up and down and do this. I'm very interested.
I would hope so. And I hope that it excites your audience and the people that will ultimately listen to the show. We talked about this morning with my sales team. I don't know what holds people back from doing it, Bruce. I don't know if it's the limiting belief or the fear or the feeling that people just have where they say, am I worthy? For so many people, just the idea of raising $5 million, just that number seems so big and immense. It's really not. When you break that down, 5 million divided by 12 months in the year is 400,000 a month roughly. And if the average investor's giving you 75 or 100,000, each month you're only looking for 4 to 5, 6 people. And, as you start the engine and you start working a database, you start connecting and getting referrals, and it just kind of escalates and snowballs on itself. And I say, once you set it in motion, it will get easier with time. The analogy is it's like building a six-pack. It's consistently showing up every day, right? You just don't get started with something and then fall off the bus and give up. It snowballs and it compounds, and people that you talk to will connect you with others. And so, understanding that rich, wealthy people tend to hang out with other affluent people, right? You don't see Richard Branson at Necker Island with bums under the palm trees. He's got celebrities and rich people there. It's understanding that once you gain an investor's trust, once they start to see success in you and what you're doing, it's saying, hey, Bruce, who are you connected with that we should also be speaking to? And now you start thinking about the people in your network, a friend that might have sold their business or a business associate. And so we start extracting referrals, and that's really what accelerates the capital raise. But the other thing that also is a real gold mine, which is something we find no other educator out here really talks to, is I call it market to the one to get to the masses. You see, I was in business. I was raising money the hard way, the way most people do: phone calls, meetups, grudgery, picking up small checks, 25, 50,000. And man, I'll admit, it is hard work to do that. And a friend of mine that was a very small boutique registered investment advisor called me one day, and he said, I've been following you, and I think what you do is very suitable for some of the clients whose money we manage. And so after investing some time getting to know me and doing the due diligence, we co-hosted an event together. And the best part about this is he did all the work. He got about 15 to 20 of his better, more affluent clients. He brought me in, he introduced me, and I get up on stage and I spoke for about 30 minutes. And he did all the follow-up with each family that he had curated and brought to this event. And in 2 weeks, he raised about $2.5 million for us.
Wow.
Said, that's the way to successfully raise capital. And so if you understand that and focus on building relationships with these connectors, you can literally scale your capital raising. And for people that we've shared this with, they go out and they raise, 3 to 5 times the amount of capital over the next year compared to what they raised in the prior 12 months. Because what we understand is that one person might control 80 to 100 wealthy family relationships. And by plugging into that, you're able to really grow and multiply. And so, we have the lists, we go to the events, and we show people how to do this at scale. And that's really the big game changer. It's really understanding and really perfecting that concept so that, if you're raising 5 or 10 million this year, you can go to 50 or 100 million next year.
So I'm curious, do you provide people any kind of software for their database, or do you kind of let them work with their own software?
So we use, our company, my company uses Go High Level. I really don't care what CRM system or what database other people choose to use. It doesn't matter whether it's Pipedrive or Salesforce or Go High Level, but you definitely do need a CRM system to bring structure to your capital raising business. And so once you have that, it's really just now documenting your activity, creating the reminder tasks, putting notes in there about the conversations you have so that you become more defendable, because one of the things that we need to do in our business, of course, is really know our customers and understand who they are financially. Is this a suitable investment, et cetera, KYC rules in the securities business. But, it doesn't matter what CRM system you choose to use. And then we always recommend to most of our students that you utilize what we call an investor portal for the sharing of your investment documents. Usually it's a link on your website that you say, here's our portal, Bruce. If you click there, it'll open up to our memorandum, to our pitch deck, all of the things that you would need to see to feel comfortable in moving forward with us potentially as an investment partner. But we help people build all those assets. If they don't have them, we make recommendations and we introduce them typically to a couple of companies. And I just say, interview 3 or 4 businesses or companies that can do this for you, and just go with the one that you feel the best about.
That's fantastic. That's great. Well, I think we could talk for another 2 hours on this at least. But let's conclude it there. Where can people get a hold of you, Brad?
Well, I'm pretty easy to find socially all over the internet. If you just Google my name, Brad Blazar, B-L-A-Z like zebra, A-R, I'll pop up all over LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. The easiest way to find me is just go directly to my website. It's just, www.bradblazar.com. You can learn about me. You can learn about our platform. You can watch some great podcast episodes we've recorded with some phenomenal entrepreneurs. You can learn about the books and just learn a lot to give you kind of what I call that baseline content that you need to really decide, I want to do this. I'm curious about doing this. I'd like to take the next steps, to book a call with me or a member of our team. That's really the best way to find us, is just to Google us on the internet or just go directly to my website, bradblazar.com.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm going to go there. We're going to talk some more. So we'll reconvene here in a month or two, or whenever it takes, to kind of talk about where we are and where we went with this whole thing.
Love it. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being a great host. Great questions, a lot of energy. Loved being here with you this evening, Bruce. And so again, thank you so much for inviting us to your show.
Great to have you.
That's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.